Hi, good morning, everyone. All right. So we have seen how manually we could share uh, a particular record to a single user or to the multiple users. Let me just go with this diagram just to have a clear understanding on what we are discussing right now. Is that diagram? Yeah, this one. See, we have seen how exactly we could share a record, right? Manually, we could share a record by using a sharing button. How could we share a record to the single user, to the multiple users? Now, when we are sharing it to the multiple users, we actually would require to create a public group, right? And with the previous example, you know that we have created a group called Hyderabad Sales Group, right? I can show it to you directly in the sales source. Like if I go with the managed users and if I go with the public groups, so you can see that we have created a public group. As a part of members of this group, we are having customer user and testing user. Both of them are the members of this group. Now, all right. Now let's move forward this discussion towards the second form of sharing, which is actually an automatic sharing. Automatic or automated sharing, one and same thing. Now understand one thing. Whenever you do an automated sharing, you can share a record only to a public group. You can share a record only to a public group. Whenever we are doing the automatic sharing, we can share the record only to a public group. And using automatic sharing, using the sharing rule, we cannot share it to the single users. That is not possible. Directly, it's not possible. If you are doing an automatic sharing, if you are sharing the record automatically, how to do that? There are two forms of based on criteria based, owner based, right? We're going to see that. But whatever would be the type of that, whatever the form of automatic sharing you are using, understand one thing, we cannot share it directly to the single users. I cannot share it directly to the single users. No, it's not possible. Whenever we are doing the automatic sharing, this allows you to share the data only to the public group. So that is what you can say as a restriction, maybe as a what to say, not drawback, but I'm not getting the proper word for that. Anyways, whatever it is. सुबह सुबह याद नहीं आता जल्दी. So the advantage with the manual sharing, a limitation, I was about to say the limitation. That was a limitation with the automatic sharing. With the manual sharing, this is a benefit. You can share it to a single person. You can also share it to the multiple persons. Means a public group. That was allowed over here. Problem with the automatic sharing is that if you wanted to perform the sharing, this sharing can be done only with the public groups. We cannot share it to the single users. Using automatic sharing, I cannot share a record to the single users. But then this is something we would ask in the interview. For example, using automatic sharing, if I wanted to share a record to a single user, how exactly this is possible? Exactly, this is possible. Using automatic sharing, I wanted a record to get shared to the single user. How it is possible? All right, how it is possible. So what you have to say in that case, listen this very carefully. See, directly it's not possible. Directly it is not possible because that is a rule of Salesforce that when you try with the automatic sharing, when you try to share a record by writing a sharing rule, we cannot, there would be no option. You are going to say this. There would be no option to share it to a single user, right? Rather, there would be options like public group, roles, and internal, external, subordinate. You are going to see this. You would not going to see any option called users over there. When we would come to that interface, you would going to see this live. But right now, so using automatic sharing directly, I cannot share it to a single user. It's not possible. So what we do in that case is like, this is a little tricky question. Okay, using automatic sharing, how would you share a record to a public group? Sorry, to a single user. How with the automatic sharing, how you could share a record to the single user? So for that, what you have to do is like, you first of all would require to create a public group. Because ultimately understand one thing, using automatic sharing, I could only share a record to public group. So what I'm going to do, I would be creating a public group. I would be creating a public group and I'll add just that single user to this public group. Matlab, we would going to create a public group where there would be only one user inside that. I'm not going to add anybody else into that. So when I'll be sharing this, let's consider there's a group called group G1. Okay. Now this group G1 only have one user, user one. When I would be sharing this, the automatic sharing, when I would be sharing it to G1, this indirectly means I have shared it to the user one, because there is no another person into this group. So that's how we actually implement this. All right. I hope this clear is to everybody. Now let's come to the automatic sharing. Let's come to the automatic sharing, how we can do this. You just have to go with whatever is the theory over here. All right. Whatever is the theory over here, you just have to go this. At least once you should read this. All right. There are two forms of automatic sharing, owner based and criteria based. Even if you go with the third form, that is guest user also means owner based sharing rules hota hai. Okay. Chalo. So create a sharing rule. I'm directly going with the use case. Go with all this theory. Once again, I'm repeating, go with all these theory. Whatever is being written is for you. All right. Create a sharing rule to share the account record to the Hyderabad sales group with read-only access. When the record meets with the below condition. So there is a condition. If, for example, there's an account, whenever an account record is getting created, whenever an account record is getting created, all right. If the industry is banking, for that account, if the rating is hot, if the status of active is yes, and the ownership is public. So if all these four conditions would match, we would require to share it to one of the group called as Hyderabad sales group. All right, with read-only access. What kind of access should be given? Read-only access. See, we already have this group, Hyderabad sales group. What needs to be get required is to write down a sharing rule. You wanted to share something automatically. Based on certain criteria. On account object, I wanted to write a sharing rule in such a way that it would automatically share a record. To one of the group. Which group? Hyderabad sales group. But there must be certain condition that requires to be get satisfied. What are those conditions? For that particular account, the industry should banking, rating should hot, active status should yes, and ownership should be public, right? Let's see how we can do this. So I would be going to the security controls. Inside the security control, I'll look into the sharing settings. All right. So it's like you have to go with setup menu, and then administer menu inside. And this has been written in the theory. I mean, if I would find it there, somewhere around it has been written. See, this is right. So you don't have to worry about this. So inside like administer, go with the security control. Inside security control, go with the sharing settings, right? Now, when you click onto this, the first thing what you see would be OWD. See, organization wide defaults, right? This we already have understood. Now, when you scroll it down, you're going to see one thing called sharing rules. See, you're going to see one thing called as sharing rules. And for every object, like OWD, for every object, there is a separate sharing rule. For lead, if you have any sharing rule, or if you wanted to create any sharing rule, if you have any sharing rule, or if you wanted to create a sharing rule, this is the section. Whatever the sharing rule is already there, they are being listed out over here. Right now, it's not, because nothing has been created, of course. Or if you wanted to create, there's a button for that, right? So let we and see, you can just scroll it, and you can see for every object is there. Now, once again, I would like to revise one thing. You can see the name of hiring manager. Why don't you see the name of position and candidate? Without looking into this, I can merely assume that hiring manager is having a master detail relationship with position, and position is also having a master detail relationship with candidate. And you remember one point of difference between these two. We read that The sharing and security setting. The sharing and security setting. In case of a master detailed relationship, that depends on the parent. In case of a lookup, there's nothing like that. And all of them would have their independent settings. But for a master detailed relationship, the sharing setting, the security settings of a child depends on the parent. And that's the reason you can see the name of hiring manager sharing. Whatever would be, if I would create a new rule for hiring manager like this, that rule is going to be applicable for the position as well as for the candidate. Right? I hope that's clear. Now let's come to, so this is like, for every object, wherever the sharing is allowed, you can see the name of all of them over here. I wanted to create this rule for account because in my use case, I can see in my use case, it's all about account industry should be this and this and that, right? So I would be creating a rule for the account. All right. How to create this? There is a new button over here, right? I just make a click onto this. Now let's look at this interface. Look at this interface. See, there are three different forms of sharing. There are three different forms of sharing. Owner-based sharing rule, criteria-based sharing rule, or guest user-based sharing rule. There are three forms of sharing rules. Guest and owner, they are slightly same to each other. All right. It would be better if you recall all three of them. Owner-based, criteria-based, guest owner or guest user-based sharing rule. Okay. So owner based is something like, if this particular person is the owner, share the record to this particular person. That's simple thing. If, for example, if the owner is Akash, if the owner of the Akash, or whatever Akash is creating, that should be get shared to, let's say, Akhtar. Or whenever the Akhtar is the owner of any record, that record should automatically get shared to Bhagyashri. If Bhagyashri is the owner of any record, that record should automatically get shared to Kajal. So this is like basically owner-based sharing rule. But this is not what we required. What we required to check for certain conditions. Whenever a new record inside account would getting created, check for the industry value. If the value is industry, or if the value of industry is banking, if the value of rating is hot, and these two conditions, then share the record. So whenever you have certain conditions to be get checked, we actually go with the second one, and that is the criteria based. See the difference in the interface itself. There is no criteria to be get checked. It would just check for owner. It would just check for the owner from this one, roles, internal, external, whatever. For example, like Akash is having a role called manager. Whenever or maybe like a testing user, whenever he would create a record, so that should go to the manager, right? So based on that, based on roles and everything, I would be selecting that. For example, Akash is a person called a COO, or maybe Akash is a person called as like a team lead. Whenever he would create a record, that should go to select the record who would be shared, select the record to share with whom. So that should be shared to, let's say a person called as maybe the vice president. So this is an owner-based sharing rule, right? This is an owner-based sharing rule. I don't want to implement that, by the way. Our criteria is little different. We have certain conditions to be get checked. And so I would be going with the second one, that is based on criteria. But before that, let me give the name to this rules and all. I'll like to give the name, share the account records to the Hyderabad sales group. All right, share the account record to the Hyderabad sales group, because that is what is mentioned in my, all right. After that, criteria based sharing rules, and then select which records to be get selected. So I have certain conditions. In short, what needs to be getting, industry should be banking. So I would go with the first condition. Inside the account, there's a field called as industry. The value should equals to what? The value should equals to banking. If the value of industry is banking, this is my first condition. What is second condition? Rating should be hot. So I would go with rating. The rating should be hot. What is my third condition? Active status should be yes. So I'll go with the active status should equals to, let's say, yes. And final condition, the ownership should equals to public. Ownership ownership should equals to public. Should equals to public. Now here you can add maximum 10 conditions. 5 are already over here. If you go with the add filter logic, all right. No, you can only add 5 conditions. Yes, yes, yes. You can only add 5 conditions, not more than that. Not 10 condition. नहीं 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 पहले ही सही बोला था मैंने. You can add maximum hours 11 12. अच्छा. All right. All right. All right. अरे that's good to know. पहले 10 conditions थी, अभी शायद अपडेट हो गया ये. I have to check it out. वो काफी ज्यादा दिख रहा है अभी. चलो, so this is something I will do a little research onto this by today. Yeah, how many maximum conditions we could add it. Initially it was 10 conditions. 10 के बाद में ये जो hyperlink है वो remove हो जाता था. And that's good to know. So we are like this. अभी देखो यहाँ पे there's nothing happening when I make a click on to remove row. तो 10 conditions के बाद में add row जो है वो अपने आप वो हो जाता था. But अभी दिख रहा है कि उसमें और भी conditions है. So I'll have to make a little research onto this. चलो. So these are the conditions, like, I have imposed industry should be banking, rating should be hot, active should be yes, ownership should be public. And between all those conditions, there's an and. There's an and. All right, there's an and. Now, this is my condition. All right, this is my condition. After that, first of all, what I did, I give a name to the sharing rule. Second, I have decided based on what it falls. Is it an owner based or criteria? I came to know because we need to check for certain thing. It's a criteria based sharing rules. All right. Then when I select the criteria, I'll have to give the conditions. That also I have given. I have checked for the logic, what is between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. So I came to know it's and it should be and. It should not be or. If you wanted to make a changes over here, you can decide between and, or, and not. There are 3 operators. There are 3 logical operators that you could select it over here. Anyways, now let's come to the step number 4. Step number 4, to whom you wanted to share. This is something which I was telling. When you do when you create a sharing rules, or right, automatic sharing, you will not going to find the option to share it to directly to the single users. That is what I was trying to convince you, that using an automatic sharing, we cannot share it to single user directly. Let's see that. So to whom you wanted to share. If I want, I can share it with a public group. You can also share it with the roles, internal, external. Did you see any option over here called users? Because if there would be an option of the user, I could simply select a user. There's no option. There's no option. And this proves, this proves that using automatic sharing, you cannot share it directly to the single user. Right? I'm selecting a public group. Which group? Hyderabad sales group. What type of access? Read only, read write. I'll go with read only. I think that is what is mentioned in the problem. Yeah, read only access. So I follow the same thing. I'll not do anything related to opportunity in the cases. Once this has been formed, once this has been formed, I'm going to save a record. I'm going to save this. But before I'll do this, I wanted you to mark certain things because we are going to have a discussion about this. Whenever you are creating an automatic sharing rule, what are the things that, criteria-based sharing rule, let's talk about the criteria-based only. What are the things that you see is important? Please mark it. Maybe it would be better if you would write it down. Whenever we are sharing an automatic sharing rule, criteria-based, the first thing that we should know is conditions to be get checked or criteria to be get evaluated. What are the conditions? We should know them. If you don't know the conditions, what needs to be get checked, obviously you cannot fill anything over here. Mentioning the condition, at least one, you see it's mandatory, you see it's required. So whenever I'm sharing an automatic sharing rule, the first thing I should know what are the conditions to be get checked. What are the criterias that needs to be get evaluated. Second, to whom you wanted to share this. Single user is not possible, of course, over here, but indirectly, this. Indirectly, we can even do that. We can form a group. We can create a group where there would be only one user. And that's the reason I'm saying to whom you wanted to share, maybe user, public group, roles, internal, whatever. You should know point number two. You should know the first thing, what is the criteria, what is the condition. Second thing, to whom we are actually sharing the record. And the third thing, what what is the level of access? What is the level of access? Read only or read write? These are the three important points you should know about whenever we are planning for an automatic sharing, whenever we are writing, whenever we are creating, what? A sharing rule, right? These are the three conditions that everyone should know. Once again, I'm going to have a discussion onto this. So keep this points, keep this point handy with you, because there would be a certain time. अभी अभी just एक topic के बाद, maybe आज या कल जब भी, but I'm going to have a discussion onto this, and maybe I could ask you, tell me what are those things that you feel is important before creating. We should have those things handy with us before creating a sharing rule. You would going to say me, you'll have to answer me that first of all, we should know what is the criteria, what are the conditions, that requires to be get checked. Second, we should also know to whom we are sharing the record. This should already known to us, like Hyderabad sales group or whatever. And what is going to be the level of access? That is also something we should know. So we should have a clarity about these three things. As a prerequisite, we must have all these three things ready with us. If you know all those 3 points, then and then only you could go with automatic sharing, otherwise not. Right? Chalo, let me now save this record. Let me now save this. Okay. Now, if you go to this, you can, if you scroll it down and you go to the sharing rules, you see in the account, this is what the sharing rule. If you wanted to make any changes over there, you can just go and edit and once again save it. When you would edit this, for example, if I would make any changes over here, right? I would make any changes. And when I'll save this, right? When I would save this, I would have to recalculate, understand. Whenever you make any changes, you'll have to recalculate. This is something you should have an idea about. If you make any changes in the sharing rule, it's not going to be marked. I mean, it's not going to be, it's not going to be applied automatically. You'll have to recalculate this. For the first time, it would be activated by itself. But if you make any changes, you'll have to recalculate this. All right. So now this rule is in active state and time is to test it. So I'll go with accounts and see. I will go with both kinds of the testing. Let's say I would be creating one like sharing rule test negative. Okay. Or let's start with the positive. Let's start with the positive testing. POSITIV, positive test. Test positive. No, test positive. No, positive test record number 1. Okay. So when see, I would be just creating a record with all ideal conditions. What are those ideal conditions? The industry should be banking. First condition. Second, rating should be hot. Okay. What else are there? Rating. Active status should be yes. So active status should be yes. And ownership should be public. So I'm just creating a record with all ideal conditions. Where is ownership? This public, right? So these are all the idea. You can mark something more over here if you wanted. You can like just create the record with few basic. I mean, just go with this. I don't have much time, so I'm just skipping all other fields. So these are some ideal conditions, like I'm creating a record with industry as banking, active as yes, and ownership as public. And what else is there? Rating. So where is rating? Rating is also hot, right? So with all those ideal condition matching, I'll just save this record. Okay, chalo. Now this record has been created. And it has been logged because it has been sent to the approval process. So approval process ko whenever the record is getting submitted, in the initial submission, there is one default thing, it's get logged. That's the reason you see this. All right. But we can unlock the record, no problem, because we are the admin, we could see this. Only the administrators can do this. Nobody else can do that, right? I can unlock the record. Chalo, chodo usko. Important hai, abhi sharing pe chalo. As you go with the sharing, you see this record, what I have created is being shared to a public group. To whom? To the Hyderabad sales group. How come? Automatic sharing. Did we share that? क्या मैंने यहाँ पे add किया? You guys are witness. I did nothing over here. It was I just created the record. This record automatically gets shared. How come this is? Because we have written a sharing rule in a way, and because this record sharing rule positive test number 1, this matches with the conditions, all those ideal conditions, and that's why the record has been automatically shared to this group. This is what what to say. This is what an automatic sharing. If you tried with a negative testing, you try to create a record like sharing rule that was positive test. I'll go with, for example, negative test. Okay. I'll make this as government. I'll make this as hot, ownership as public, right? What I'm trying to do, I would be making all conditions true, just I'm failing one condition, right? Industry should be banking, I make it government. Rating should be hot, it's hot. Ownership is public. An active status is yes. So only one condition is getting failed. I would be creating a record. Let's see whether this record has been shared or not. So I'll go with sharing. See, no shared. This record has not been shared. Why? Because it doesn't match the conditions. If you wanted to share it manually, go with that. This would be a manual share. Inside manual share, see, you have this option users. Inside automatic sharing, you just have public, roles, and rows. You don't have this option. Inside automatic sharing, there's no option called as users. That is what is the difference between manual and automatic sharing. Manual sharing, you can select single users as well. You have this option user. You don't see this option during your automatic sharing. All right. So that was one thing. So this actually completes the sharing. Let me come to one final point of discussion, which really is important. If you already have automatic sharing, or you can even share a record manually, or you can share it automatically. I could share a record manually by clicking onto the sharing button. I could even share write a sharing rule. So if I could share a record automatically, why there is an Apex sharing? Why there is an Apex sharing? Why to share a record? I mean, if I could share a record automatically, why would I go with the Apex sharing? So that's an interview question. Now let me answer you this. So we have discussed something. Just now we have discussed something. I told you to write down 3 points. Whenever you do an automatic sharing, see, if we are sharing, 1 second. Yeah, this one. So if in automatic sharing, if you know the criteria that requires to get checked. So if you know in advance what are the criteria that requires to get checked. जैसे अभी हमने एक problem solve किया that clearly mentions us that you'll have to check for industry value and all. What are these? These are the conditions that require to be get checked. These are the criteria that requires to be get evaluated. We know this in advance. We know this before even writing the rule. We know these are something. So if you know the conditions to be get checked, then you can go with automatic sharing. But if these conditions are coming dynamically at runtime, for example, there is an user interface like this. There is an user interface like this. Okay. Let's consider there is an user interface. There might be a visual force page or maybe a lightning page is there. And it's asking the user, enter the criteria to get share. To share, to wahan pe user is entering industry value should be this or this or this. So there are certain fields over there. And when there's a button called a submit button. There's a button called a submit. As and when he would submit, we would know what are the criterias. But in advance, I don't know. This would only happen after user would enter certain values over certain fields. What he is going to enter, I don't know. Why? Because this is a runtime entity. This is a runtime entity. Only after this event has been occurred, right? When this submit button has been pressed, that event, it would fire an event, of course. I'll capture all this and I'll bring it to my program. And then only I would came to know कि यार इसने क्या criteria दिया. So whenever this quantity, all these criteria would come in runtime, there is no possibility that you can go with automatic sharing. Second point. So if the criteria is known to you, then it's okay. But if the criteria, all of those conditions, if they are coming, if they are obtaining, you are obtaining this, you're coming, they are coming dynamically at runtime, then you will have to go with Apex sharing. You have to write down a trigger for that. The second point, what we have discussed, we should know like to whom we are sharing. User, public group, roles, whatever, but the name should known to us in the beginning itself. But if that is coming, if see, we need to select the users, public group, whatever. But if this name of the user or name of the public group, it's coming again in the dynamically runtime, then I cannot design an automatic sharing. यहाँ तो मेंशन था कि वो हैदराबाद सेल्स ग्रुप को दे दो, यहाँ तो मेंशन था, है ना, यहाँ तो मेंशन था यहाँ पे. But if this quantity to whom we wanted to share is again coming runtime, तो हम फिर नहीं नहीं कर सकते. We cannot go with automatic sharing. हमको तब अपेक्स शेयरिंग पे जाना पड़ेगा. अच्छा, ये था सेकंड पॉइंट आपका, किसको शेयर करना है. थर्ड पॉइंट, क्या लेवल ऑफ एक्सेस देना, रीड राइट या रीड ओनली, दो लेवल ऑफ एक्सेस है. इवन इफ दैट इज नोन टू अस तो ठीक है, इफ दैट इज अगेन कमिंग, तो कहने का मतलब क्या है, कुल मिला के बात यह कि तीन चीजें बहुत जरूरी होती है जब व्हेन यू गो विद द ऑटोमेटिक शेयरिंग. अगर इफ ऑल थ्री क्वांटिटीज आर नोन टू यू, लाइक हैदराबाद सेल्स ग्रुप को दे दो, ये क्राइटेरिया है with read-only access. So all these three quantities are known to us. We can design an automatic sharing. Even a single quantity or multiple or all of them, if they are coming dynamically at runtime, we cannot go with automatic sharing. There's only one way, and that is Apex sharing. Write down a trigger for that. So this is the reason to go with Apex sharing when we already have automatic sharing. Right, and that's complete the topic. I'll go with some other options by tomorrow. I don't have, and I'll have to end up this class 8:15. I'm having second, and this I would be going to complete by tomorrow morning, and this would be completing your, I know tomorrow is Saturday, but you'll have a class. So tomorrow we are going to complete with OWD, and maybe we could also start with the queues. Let's see. That's all for today. I'm giving you certain time if you wanted to ask anything. Now you can ask it. Yes, any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Yesterday, I have given one assignment and most of you have solved it correctly. For few of them, I have seen there was no email option. I included one option over there that during the initial submission and the final approval or rejection, one email should get fired. So for few, I just have to scroll the names. I mean, I don't want to do that, but I have seen that most of you have designed the approval process very correctly. The only mistake what I have found, maybe you have not read the question properly. So during the initial submission, whenever somebody would submit a record for approval that time, and if the approver would either approve or reject it, whatever the action he would take, based on that action, I also wanted to fire an email. So that part was missing with some few of them. Otherwise, most of you have solved it correctly. I'll try to build up few more assignments. Right. Yes. Any questions, guys? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Nothing? All right, then. Thank you so much for not asking me anything. Have a nice day.